Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are going to peel back the layers of America's most popular sport to reveal its hidden historical and, well, sociological functions. We're looking way beyond the scoreboard here to understand exactly how American football functions as this incredibly powerful cultural machine. So let's jump right in with a highly disruptive question straight from our source material. If American football is merely entertainment, why does it require the anthem, flags, military honor guards, service academy rivalries, and repeated public performances of national loyalty? It's a genuinely fascinating prompt, right? I mean, if football is truly just a game, just a simple, innocent weekend pastime, why is it wrapped up in such intense military language and patriotic ceremony? Section 1. The surface, a hegemonic sports culture. To really grasp this civic spectacle, we first have to look at its sheer massive scale. Just think about the number 75 for a second. According to the data, NFL games accounted for an absolutely astounding 75 of the top 100 most-watched television broadcasts in 2021. 75. Football sits squarely at the center of America's hegemonic sports culture. It transcends just being popular. It's a unifying, inescapable national event. But as sociologists point out, a cultural footprint this massive rarely exists just for fun. Which brings us to layer 1, the exhibitionary logic. This is where we start to decode what this spectacle is actually doing beneath the surface. Sociologists and historians argue that football operates on what they call an exhibitionary logic. Basically, this is how institutions use trained bodies, ceremony, mass emotion, and national symbols to project power, rank fitness, and produce legitimacy. It's a brilliant way to understand how huge institutions, universities, the military, massive corporate sponsors, use the athletic body and grand, televised ceremonies to visually display their authority to the masses. It literally transforms institutional power into raw, collective emotion. And the historical precedent for this? It is fascinating. We can trace the architectural and ceremonial roots of the modern stadium all the way back to the national festivals of the French Revolution. We're talking about things like the 1780 Colosseum Plan or the 1798 Champ de Mars Olympic Games. These early national festivals, they sought to unify citizens through grand public contests, right? They combined agricultural, industrial, and athletic exhibitions to display the sheer strength and modern capabilities of the state. Now, let's pull that historical thread just a bit further. Researchers in the source texts draw a really interesting parallel between the social function of modern football and historical events like the 1904 St. Louis World's Fair. Back then, organizers actually held anthropology days, which used athletic display as a tool to rank human fitness and scientifically enforce the social categories of the time. The sources draw a functional connection from that directly to the modern NFL Combine and Draft. Think about it. Physical bodies are rigorously measured, tested, drafted into units, and ultimately utilized to generate immense institutional wealth. The contexts are obviously vastly different, but both systems use the physical body as a heavily regulated administrative tool. So the crucial takeaway here is this. The stadium is essentially a fairground organized around a regulated battlefield. American football acts as a modern continuation of those World's Fair and Olympic traditions. It stages a controlled contest that takes the abstract, massive power of our institutions and transforms it into mass, communal emotion that we can all literally feel and participate in every single Sunday. Layer 2, America's civic liturgy. As we peel back this next layer of the onion, we move from just the projection of institutional power to the engineering of deep, almost religious belief. Analysts describe football as a civic liturgy. Now, a liturgy is a repeated public order of words, gestures, roles, and symbols that sacralizes patriotism and national identity. It operates just like a civil religion. It takes national loyalty, gives it a sacred weight, and heavily reinforces it through strict weekly rituals that millions of people participate in at the exact same time. Just consider the sheer number of religious parallels baked right into the rituals of the gridiron. I mean, the sport commands appointed days of play, traditionally Sundays. It involves synchronized processions, the singing of national anthems, collective standing, synchronized chants and responses, team uniforms that function a lot like vestments, and a deep reverence for physical sacrifice and memorials. This whole structure teaches spectators exactly when to rise, whom to revere, which colors to defend, and what victory fundamentally means. It's a perfect illustration of how sports and national mythology converge. As researchers point out, spectacular productions of the national anthem, military flyovers, and frequent calls to support the troops are nearly as much a part of mediated sports as the games themselves. These elaborate ceremonies firmly embed military and national authority safely inside an emotionally protected spectacle. And by binding these heavy symbols to a beloved game, well, it makes it nearly impossible to critique the institution without sounding unpatriotic. And finally, the core, the cost of the spectacle. Let's dive right into the core of this explainer, where we find a pretty stark contradiction regarding who makes the sacrifices and who actually reaps the profits. The text highlights a profound structural critique. Inclusion in the spectacle is not inclusion in sovereignty. While athletes sacrifice their bodies on the field to generate immense value, playing through pain, risking long-term injury, being heralded for their toughness, the actual ownership, governance, medical authority, and institutional wealth, that remains almost entirely in the hands of others. Being the star of the show absolutely does not mean you hold the power of the institution. The sources observe a powerful historical parallel here, too. They draw a direct comparison between the unequal sacrifice of Black Marines during the Vietnam era, men who were asked to defend liberties abroad that they were systemically denied at home, to the highly visible athletes on the field today. In both instances, they note that Black bodies may be highly visible in their athletic performance and physical sacrifice, generating all that emotional spectacle, while the institutional wealth and governing authority safely remain elsewhere. Which leads us to a piercing central question from the academic texts about the ultimate authority behind these massive displays. By what authority does any republic invoke truth, liberty, sacrifice, charity, or brotherhood while refusing the judgments these require? The authors are really asking us to consider how football commercializes moral authority and military imagery, all while keeping the institutions themselves totally insulated from the ethical judgments that those heavy concepts usually demand. So we'll leave you with this final, provocative thought to ponder the next time you turn on the game, settle into your seat, and watch that military flyover. When a cultural institution receives appointed time, inherited devotion, bodily sacrifice, financial wealth, who benefits? When a spectacle demands this much of our collective time, our money, and the literal bodily sacrifice of its performers, we really have to ask, who is truly capturing the value? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I hope this new perspective enriches the way you see the gridiron.